Hello and welcome to the Guidance for Completing Form FS-10 and the Budget Narrative for the Perkins 5 Postsecondary Grant provided by the Career and Technical Education Center of New York State. Perkins 5 is the informal name for the Strengthening Career and Technical Education for the 21st Century Act, which took effect in 2019 and replaced the Carl D. Perkins Career and Technical Education Act of 2006, commonly referred to as Perkins 4. Perkins 5 provides $1.2 billion in federal funding annually for career and technical education at the secondary and post-secondary levels. If you haven't already, I would encourage you to view the new grant officer training, which can be found at the link we've provided. In today's session, we will address the FS-10, a required component of a complete application for Perkins 5 funding. The goal of today's training is to guide Perkins Grant Recipient Institutions in preparing a fully complete Perkins 5 post-secondary grant application. Specifically, we will be focusing on the FS-10 form and the budget narrative. Throughout today's training, we will refer to page numbers in the application, as well as the Perkins Grant guidelines. This document will be relevant to you as you complete your application. Let's begin by reviewing the acceptable uses of grant funds. Perkins 5 is very specific about what expenses are eligible for funding. To ensure your application is processed and funds are transferred quickly, limit your request to these categories. Career exploration and development activities may be provided through an organized, systematic framework designed to aid career and technical education students. Such expenses assist students in making plans and decisions about programs of study and career direction. Professional development opportunities for CTE instructional staff and administrators directly related to the institution's CTE goals and objectives may be included. Expenditures within CTE that provide the skills necessary to pursue high-skill, high-wage, or in-demand industry sectors or occupations. These may be included as well. Expenses that support the integration of academic skills into CTE programs and programs of study to support CTE participants at the post-secondary level in achieving academic skills are eligible. Elements that support the implementation of CTE programs and programs of study that result in increasing student achievement on performance indicators are eligible as well. Finally, expenses for developing and implementing evaluations related to Perkins 5 activities, including evaluations necessary for the comprehensive local needs assessment and the local report. The use of Perkins funds is governed by the fiscal guidelines for federal and state-aided grants available at the NYSED website. Please see those guidelines if you require more information. Perkins 5 is also very specific about what expenses cannot receive grant funding. Please check to ensure that your application does not include any of the following expenses. Your funding may be delayed or your application returned for revisions if you include any of these expenses. First, you may not include expenditures for students not enrolled in CTE programs. The one exception is recruitment of students for CTE programs who are non-traditional by gender for their programs. Expenditures that directly benefit individual students. The only exception is expenditures that reduce or eliminate out-of-pocket expenses for special populations of students participating in CTE programs. Payment of tuition for high school students. Payment for tuition, internships, or apprenticeships for students. Equipment for administrative, faculty, or staff use. General use furniture. Food service, refreshments, banquets, or meals. Promotional items such as pens, pencils, or t-shirts. Remodeling. The one exception is for accessibility to CTE instruction or to the use or installation of project-purchased equipment. Travel outside the United States. Professional organization memberships. Subscriptions to journals or magazines. Pay close attention, please, to what is allowed and not allowed under Perkins 5. Now let's discuss the specific forms required. Before completing the FS-10 form, we encourage you to complete sections number 8 and sections number 9 in the goal format section of the Perkins application. These are the goal staff table and the goal budget. They will assist you in completing the FS-10. This information is critical for you to determine what is necessary and how Perkins 5 money should be used to allow the institution to make progress on the institution's goals. You will need to go to the link provided to access the FS-10. Under the heading Budgets, select the FS-10 in Excel format. Open and save the file. To save the file, select File, then Save As. Rename the file, select the appropriate location on your computer, and click OK. Once you have opened the FS-10 file, make sure that you have the correct version. Go to the Agency Info tab then in the upper right-hand corner. Confirm that the version is for March 15th. The Grants Finance Office will not accept older versions of the FS-10, so this step is critical. Here are some general tips and requirements for completing the FS-10 form. Our intent here is to give you an overview of how this template works, what you are required to complete, and what the template will do automatically. First, you are responsible for completing all the green shaded fields on the agency information and budget summary. Take some time to review these before you get started. Make sure to include the agency name, agency code, and the project number. The Grants Finance Office at the New York State Education Department cannot process the forms unless you include these items. Code each budget category item by goal number. For example, Goal 1, Manager, Goal 2, Technology Equipment. Note that this is why we encourage you to review your goals before getting into the specifics of this form or the expenditures proposed. Enter figures from Perkins 5 grant application, Goal Format, Chart 8, Goal Staff, and Chart 9, Goal Budget. We will offer specific examples in the next several slides. Round proposed expenditures to the nearest dollar. Category totals will automatically round, total, and carry to your budget summary. Provide sufficient detail. For example, include unit costs and quantities to show how the requested figure was calculated. Complete all columns and lines on the form so calculations for salary, fringe benefits, and indirect costs may be verified. OPASS no longer accepts TBA, TBD, or similar notations. On this slide, we will review the Professional Salaries tab and give examples. The source for the information that you must enter here is the Goal Format section of the Perkins application. Specifically, look at Item 8, the Goal Staff table, and identify the people in professional positions. You will then input the name, title, full-time equivalent out of 1.0, and the salary of all professional positions assigned to a goal. You should enter the information by goal number. Again, that's why we're referring specifically to the goals, as you need that information to move through these sections, or codes as they are sometimes called, of the FS-10 form. Finally, remember you must code each item by goal number. Note that the examples provided are 1.0 full-time equivalents. You may propose less than that to align with the work required to act on the Perkins 5 goals. Again, make certain that the information listed here matches the Goal Format section in the Perkins application. Goals, which are reflected in activities or actions, must then line up with the proposed costs. We will now move on to the Support Staff Salaries tab. This tab is completed using the same process as the Professional Salaries tab. Again, the source for the information that you enter here is the Goal Format section of the Perkins application. This time, however, look at Item 8, the Goal Staff table, and identify the people in support staff positions. You will then enter the name, title, full-time equivalent out of 1.0, and salary of all support staff positions assigned to your goal. You should enter the information by goal number. This time you are identifying non-instructional employees of the fiscal agent. These might be salaries for teachers' aides, secretarial or clerical assistants, tutors, laboratory assistants, technicians, and other non-instructional staff of the fiscal agent. Identify the portion of a full-time equivalent FTE and the annualized rate of pay. Fees for services by persons not employed by the fiscal agent must be listed under Code 40, Purchase Services. Be sure to code each item by goal number, just as we did for professional salaries. Again, make sure that the information listed here matches the Goal Format section in the Perkins application. On this slide, we will cover the Purchase Services tab. Purchase services include all services purchased outside the institution serving as the fiscal agent. This includes rentals, equipment repairs, and consultant and vendor services. A few things to keep in mind about budget items that are not purchase services. Do not use the word tuition or stipends for fees for staff development contracted with external agencies. If you as the lead agency want to pay the fiscal agent or an employee of the fiscal agent, those costs should be budgeted under Professional Staff, Code 15, or Support Staff, Code 16. Conference registration or attendance costs should be budgeted under travel expenses, Code 46. Purchase services from a BOCES, if other than the applicant agency, should be budgeted as purchase services with BOCES, Code 49. Please know that we are emphasizing these nuances as they reflect common misunderstandings and errors. Finally, please code each item by goal number, as you did with support staff salaries, Code 16, and professional salaries, Code 15. The next two tabs are supplies and materials and equipment. Please note that the New York State Education Department cannot accept generalized lists of items. For example, the New York State Education Department cannot approve items such as office supplies at $700. Please submit itemized lists indicating exactly which supplies and equipment the institution intends to purchase with Perkins funds. Regarding supplies and materials, Code 45, please keep in mind, supplies and materials refer to expendable supplies like paper and printer cartridges and instructional materials such as books that cost less than $5,000 per unit. This includes computer equipment and software under $5,000. Unit costs and quantities must be provided. Provide sufficient detail to judge the appropriateness of the quantity and unit cost. Order supplies and materials as early as possible in the grant year to maximize their benefits to students. Finally, lists of proposed acquisition of supplies must be itemized and include unit cost and each item coded by goal number. Equipment, Code 20, is defined as all items with a unit price of $5,000 or more, including software. Please keep in mind, the number of units and the unit cost must be provided. Use the phrase, or the equivalent, when specifying models or manufacturers to allow the institution to purchase an alternative item. Be aware that funding for any equipment not ready by December 31st will lapse. The institution will be required to propose new uses aligned with the findings of the CLNA and have those uses approved by the New York State Education Department before proceeding. Lists of proposed acquisition of equipment must be itemized and include unit cost. Installation must be complete by December 31st. For both supplies and materials and equipment, each item needs to be coded by goal number. Again, these stipulations reflect common misunderstandings and errors that we hope to help you avoid. The next tab is Travel Expenses, Code 46. Here you can list all allowable travel expenses. Travel is only permitted in the United States and must be directly related to the operation of the program. Travel should occur as early in the grant year as possible to maximize any benefits of the knowledge gained. Dates of travel and costs for meals, lodging, and the mode of transportation must be included. Show calculations for the figures: mileage, lodging, registration fees for conferences, meals, number of trips, and so forth. Please be aware that the New York State Education Department cannot accept generalized travel plans. For example, the New York State Education Department cannot approve items such as student travel at $1,200. More specific information is required for the New York State Education Department to approve such expenses. Submit itemized lists indicating exactly how Perkins funds will facilitate travel, including a breakdown of costs for transportation, lodging, meals, etc. Code each item by goal number, as done in all other budget categories. On the left-hand side of this slide is Minor Remodeling, Code 30, which is the next tab in the FS-10 form. Minor renovations are allowed when they are designed to improve physical access to a career program by students or staff with disabilities, or they are designed for the use or installation of project-purchased equipment. Keep in mind that the New York State Education Department cannot approve any remodeling for aesthetic purposes or any remodeling that would normally constitute an institutional responsibility. Be sure to code each item by goal number, as with previous expenses within budget categories. The next tab is Employee Benefits, Code 80. Here you will outline the composite fringe rate for full and part-time employees whose salaries are included in the Perkins Grant funding. Keep in mind that the fringe rate cannot exceed the current federal rate issued by the Office of the State Comptroller. The next tab is labeled Indirect Costs, Code 90. Keep in mind that indirect costs are an optional expense. If indirect costs are included, Keep in mind that indirect costs are a fixed percentage, currently 5%, used to defray costs not otherwise allowed in the budget categories. Examples include janitorial services, heat or electricity. Indirect costs include administrative costs to support, staff positions, and activities not directly related to a specific goal. Leadership activities, for example, general curriculum development, general staff in-service or training. Staff salaries and activities directly related to the successful implementation of a project are not an administrative cost. An example would be the costs associated with modifying curricula for students in a specific project. These costs would not be indirect costs, but should be reflected in professional, support staff salaries, or purchase services if a contractor is utilized. Again, indirect costs are a fixed percentage, currently 5%, of all expenditures in the budget except for equipment, minor remodeling, and stipends, honoraria, tuition, rental costs, and individual contracts exceeding $25,000. For the latter, this means that if a contract exceeds $25,000, you may only include indirect costs on the first $25,000, not beyond that figure. Finally, expenditures that directly support students, for example, book vouchers, fees for exams, or childcare, cannot be classified as indirect costs. These are direct costs if necessary and should be included in purchase services or reflected in another way. To compute your indirect costs, you will first need to manually calculate the modified direct cost base, which is a sum of all the preceding subtotals, codes 15, 16, 40, 45, 46, and 80. Next, you must exclude the portion of each subcontract exceeding $25,000. Then, you will multiply that number by the approved restricted indirect cost rate, which is currently 5%. Then, you will record your total indirect costs in Code 90. The final tab in the spreadsheet is the budget summary. This is where you will ensure accuracy and alignment. You will need to complete the following tasks. First, check all subtotals against those in the budget categories. Second, ensure that all costs and expenditures for each budget category are coded for each goal in the FS-10. Then complete your agency name, agency code, and the project number. If you do not know your project number, you can check with your liaison. Next, make sure the budget category items and amounts for each goal on the FS-10 appear and match the goal budget table in the grant application goal format. Finally, print the document and obtain the signature of the Chief Administrator of your institution in blue ink. To prepare the FS-10 form for submission, please make 3 photocopies of the FS-10 form, single-sided. Mark the original FS-10 with the original signature in blue ink of the applicant's Chief Executive Officer or designee as original signature copy. Insert the original FS-10 as item 10 of the grant application. Email the complete application to the email address provided. Mail the 3 copies of the FS-10 along with your application package to your designated liaison at the address we've provided. Once the FS-10 form is complete, you should turn your attention to the budget narrative. Keep in mind, the budget narrative must correspond to the items and figures in each budget category of the FS-10. Code and describe each item by goal number. This is where you will provide additional information or details to explain items in a budget category. For each budget category, the budget narrative must clearly describe the specific item, activity, or expenditure by goal number, the CTE program's need for the item or expenditure, how the activity or expenditure will improve the program and access opportunities for students. Keep in mind that the budget narrative is where you provide additional information or detail to explain items in a budget category. Therefore, you may want to use this space to relay your understanding and adherence to programmatic responsibilities. To do that, you may wish to include the following statements in the budget narrative as appropriate. Installation of equipment purchased with Perkins Grant funds will be completed by December 31st of the applicable grant year. All activities funded by the Perkins Grant will be completed by the end of the grant year, which is June 30th. Evaluation activities funded by the Perkins Grant will be completed by the end of the grant year, which is June 30th as well. These statements are useful for guiding the implementation of the grant and ensuring that your institution can meet these responsibilities. These presentations are intended to help all New York State Perkins 5 postsecondary applicants submit successful proposals.